Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today for another widerAdvance facility webinar, which today's webinar is focused on a topic that, in my opinion, is very overlooked, which is about standards. And as the title says, standards, the missing link in your innovation strategy. Why do we say standards are overlooked? Because it's quite often not considered when we want to increase the impact, the value, and the innovation of our product or our research result, which is more or less the topic of today's webinar, in increasing their value to the market, to the stakeholders through standards. And we are here today to let you know why this topic is important. So if I would have to recap very briefly what we are going to hear today. So first we are going to understand what standards actually are. Then we are going to see how standards translate research outputs into real-world solutions. And at the end, we are also more specifically see how European research projects should exploit the potential of standards, how they can benefit from them. And in order to let you know about this, we are happy to bring for you today a very nice group of STEAM speakers to debrief you on these topics. But first, we'll count with a presentation from Katarzyna, who is the coordinator of the widerA project. So we are going to understand why widerA exists, and there is a good reason for that, but I'll leave the floor to Katarzyna to let us know what is the main goal of widerA. Then we are very happy also to have with us Florentina Golistianou, who is a policy officer at European Commission DG Research and Innovation. And I would say Florentina will warm up today's session by sharing some insights, insights about the code of practice on standardization in the European research area landscape. And after this more or less policy overview, it's time to give the floor to the experts on standards we invited to be part of today's webinar. So first, we'll have with us René Lindner. He has a PhD, standardization consultant, and in fact, René PhD was focused on how standards can support research products in increasing their innovation thanks to standardization. So René are going to give you some insights on this matter. But after René, we welcome to the floor a lady, which is Paula Amato. Paula, she's also a very experienced senior expert on standardization. And Paula, she'll come in today's webinar with two interventions when she'll showcase examples on how research project outputs included standards in their exploitation strategy. So as you can see, we'll have a little bit of theory, but also important moments where we showcase practical examples that already took place, so they can be used as a benchmark, and they will kind of help you to see why this topic is really important. So Paula will showcase one example, and then we'll give the floor to Ivana, who is another expert as well on standardization. She's from University of Belgrade, and she'll provide an overview of the European and international standardization bodies and landscapes and how each one of us can engage with these bodies. There is a way to do this, and Ivana will focus on that. And we also have from CENELEC, which is the European Standard Development Organization, we are going to have with us Sebastian Vogel, who will talk about what are the ESO priorities to CENELEC and how stakeholders, which are or could be any of us, can influence European standardization policies and priorities. At the end, so let's say I'm opening the webinar and I'm going to close the webinar to let you know and to give you more details how you, if you are interested to benefit from standardization, but you really don't know how to do that, there is a support program from widerA available for you, and I'm going to give you some detailed information on how you can apply and benefit from this service. But I think it's enough of me. Welcome you all. I'm very happy to give the floor to the first speaker today, which is Katarzyna. But before, I'd like to inform you that if you want to pose your questions, you can do that by writing your questions on the Q&A chat. If you want to talk directly with us, you just need to raise your hand on the Sim feature, and depending on the time, we may give you the floor to talk directly with us. And with that, I think, Katarzyna, you can start. And thank you, everyone, for being here today.
Yes, thank you very much, Rita, for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, my name is Katarzyna Walczyk-Matuszek, and I will have the pleasure to share with you the information related to the widerAdvance facility. So actually the project, the initiative under which today's event is organized. I hope you can see my slides. So let me briefly introduce what widerAdvance facility is and what are the services. So widerAdvance facility is a project financed from Horizon Europe widera package with the main objective to support valorization of knowledge in widening countries and outermost region through IP advisory, standardization support, dissemination, exploitation, and capacity building support to follow the process of transforming research results into real-world impact. So just for your knowledge, the facility, the call for the facility appeared in the widera work program because many studies, but also audits conducted prove that there is a lack of enough capacity and knowledge in the region in regard to the valorization of knowledge. And the existing tools do not match to the extent which is necessary to the, let's say, possibilities and expectations of the entities stemming from widening countries. And that is why and how the facility was established. We just started, I mean, that the previous year, we started in January 2025 and will be running until the end of December 2028. We are operating within the project consortium, which gathers quite a wide portfolio of partners, 17 partners from Europe and beyond. So we have representatives from quite a significant number of widening countries, but also outermost region. Why it is necessary? This is necessary to bring widening organizations on board and later on to offer them a wide portfolio of services. We also have experienced service providers, like today with Astras IT, who is responsible for supporting the part related to the standardization in our project. So for whom is the widerAdvance facility? We are working with organizations. We are not working with single research teams or research managers. We are working with organizations as a whole, from widening countries and outermost region. A key to enter the facility is that the organization should formally be a coordinator or partner in widening project of Horizon 2020 or widera project in Horizon Europe. Having said the word organization as an umbrella, it means that we are working with researchers, so those who are owning key exploitable research results, research managers and administrators, who are in the organization's ecosystem supporting the process of valorization, but also we are working here with those who are responsible for tech transfer, communication, pre and post-award. Then within our, let's say, service delivery part, we focus on the key exploitable research results to make them advance in regard to their adoption readiness level and also in the process of the capacity building. And what is very important as well, as I have mentioned, the widening or widera actions are the key. So you can bring the research results or other results, not only research. This is very important. I would like to stress that we are not talking only about technology research, but also standards, methodologies, other results which you can bring and which were directly financed from the widening actions. But also you can go beyond and you can bring other results which are stemming from other funded projects in the same thematic domain. So here are those widening actions which actually makes you formally eligible to join the widerAdvance facility. As you see, this is ERA chairs, talents, excellence hubs, and so on. Hop-on facility as well, teaming for excellence. But what is very important, goes beyond the standard widening package, are cost innovation actions. So whenever in your organization is any of those, you are eligible to apply for our free of charge and professional support. The portfolio of services under widerAdvance facility gathers several types of services. The one group are the individual services, which are targeting research teams, research manager teams, and which are related to improve the maturity of the key exploitable results, with the workshops and coaching related to dissemination and exploitation aspects. Then there is also coaching related to the support with IP, intangible assets, support with standardization via specialized coaching, and last but not least, also individual services are related to the preparation to match with third parties via specialized coaching. Next to the individual services, we have as well a bunch of awareness and training webinars. Today is one of them, where we are trying to increase the knowledge and capacities of teams in regard to the dissemination exploitation. Part of the services, these webinars are open to the public as today's one, and also there is a part which is dedicated to those who are in the pipeline of individual services. Then we plan to have more than 20 matchmaking, we plan to have at least 20 matchmaking on-site events in form of, let's say, open days, but also sessions where research teams, research managers will be able to pitch their key exploitable results in front of investors and other innovation stakeholders with whom they could start the collaboration. We also plan to have staff visits. One of them took part, the first one took part in Prague, February this year, and where we could investigate the Prague ecosystem. And it is a great opportunity to know how centers of excellence in widening countries can find a way to become really leading entities in the European landscape. Widening countries and outermost region are also, let's say, rich in cohesion policy and other funds. So very important part of our project is as well related to synergies. So we offer here training and coaching in regard to how to exploit synergies with funding sources available in those countries and regions. For example, how to use cohesion policy to top up what was elaborated under the widening action and how to advance key exploitable results. In regard to the synergies, we also offer mutual learnings. One of them, the first one, took place in Prague as well, where we could investigate experiences and share experiences between countries in those matters. So what a single organization will receive while applying and using the services of the facility in a nutshell: individual plan, how to effectively disseminate, exploit research results, indication on the follow-up funding, where to find the calls, which calls to follow and where to apply, staff trained on dissemination exploitation. This is very important because our goal is not just to provide a one-shot services, but to build the sustainability within the organization, which stays there, and the organization will be afterwards able to valorize the research results and other results with the own resources. Then links with industry, VCs, and investors necessary for the valorization process, and of course promotion of the achievements. Here are our targets. So we are going to reach more than 1,000 individuals with our services as part of research team, research managers, administrators. It means more than 100 organizations. We want to increase the maturity level of 750 key exportable results, which are linked to the widening actions, but also stemming from the same domain. And last but not least, also we are obliged to increase recognition of widening beneficiaries relevant to this action in widening countries and region. So how to use the services? We are operating in a form of an open call, and there are like quarterly cutoffs. Next cutoff is on the 30th of April, so you are very much welcome to apply. The application is really simple. Actually, it's a registration where you just put the data of the organization, contact person, widening actions you have in the portfolio, and key exploitable results you want to work with afterwards. So this year we plan to have like 4 cutoffs. If you will not manage on the April, then also you have the chance later as well. And you can bring to the facility as many widening projects as you have, and as many key exploitable research or other results as actually you have, because after you apply, then there will be this initial engagement meeting with our experts where there will be a decision taken with what do you want to continue. And our next events, today we meet at the opportunity of the standards webinar, but on the 6th of March, there will be a webinar dedicated to the result dissemination for different stakeholders. And you are also kindly invited to join this webinar as well. Thank you very much. It was all on my side. I'm very happy that this event today takes place, and I very much encourage you also to follow our social media where you can learn about the updates related to the facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katarzyna, for your presentation. So, as you can see, the project Wider exists to help teams, research teams from the widening countries to embrace more the innovation, the impact that their research results can have in the market they are focusing on. And one important thing is that I also will highlight again later on, but it was already mentioned by Katarzyna, these support programs that are available from Wither are free of charge for you. So you just need to submit your application and don't worry about anything else. Then we'll contact you. Everything goes through a selection process because we need to select depending on the number of applications we have, and then we'll contact you to start help you on standardization or on communication, simulation, IP, whatever you may need. But let's go to the next speaker, and we have Florentina Hasset from the European Commission DG Research and Innovation, who will talk us about the code of standardization in the European research area. This is a standards. This is a webinar on standards, so it makes all sense to have this topic in today's webinar. Thank you, Florentina. Over to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here today together with you and all the experts on standardization. I think it's a great idea to complement the policy perspective with the operational side and understand exactly the procedure for standardization in practice in order for beneficiaries to have a full benefit of the picture. So thank you again for this opportunity. I represent DG Research and Innovation at the European Commission, working in the unit dealing with knowledge valorization and technology infrastructures. And of course, we also have a focus on standardization that I aim to present today. And since I am the first one to delve right into the topic of standardization, I thought that we can start with a little policy context, an overview of the EU standardization landscape to have an opening on the terminology. And here I would maybe start with the concept of standards and standardization processes. What are these? They are voluntary technical specifications which define requirements for products, production processes, services, or test methods, aiming to ensure compatibility, interoperability, safety, quality, also the reduced time to market and reduced costs with the aim to create economies of scale or network effects for an easier integration in the value chain. Of course, these effects are not cumulative. You may need standards for interoperability, for example, in the IT sector. In other cases, you need them for safety or quality or for a cumulative effect of these aims. How are standards developed? They are initiated by market needs, which means that also research and innovation actors can come forward with proposals in this sense, but they are developed in standard setting organizations through a consensus building process. And there are core principles in order to make sure that they are inclusive and they are also applicable to the widest extent possible in a way which makes their practical application easy and following common specifications. So the core principles are this is a consensus-based process. It's open to any interested party having knowledge in the field and willing to contribute, transparent, and based on a non-discriminatory basis. These are the core principles of the standard setting, the formal standardization process. But of course, there are some pre-standardization activities which follow, let's say, a lighter requirement method. For example, there may not need to be a full consensus in these lighter pre-standardization activities, and it's worth exploring for research and innovation actors how they can get involved in these ones. Who are the key players? Because I've been talking about research and innovation actors and the role of the European Commission. Here, DG Research and Innovation has a more limited role because the key players, the main actors, are actually the experts in the field and the independent standardization bodies. We have European standardization organizations, which are also present in the webinar today. Also, national standardization body in each member state and international standardization bodies. They are the ones actually conducting the formal standardization process. But throughout the process, you may see also other actors involved. As I was mentioning, normally within the standardization process, companies, including SMEs, consumer organizations, trade unions, and other NGOs, or public authorities may be involved. As regards the European Commission, we of course create the enabling conditions, let's say, through the standardization regulation and related documentation. This is in the remit of another DG, DG Grow. And DG RTD that I'm representing today is trying to create supportive conditions for the R&I actors to fully integrate this segment in their activities. And for that, we have developed a code of practice on standardization as part of the knowledge valorization package. We started in December 2022 with a council recommendation on the guiding principles, and was further developed into 4 hands-on, let's say, codes of practice that this time were adopted by the Commission. So we had, let's say, the mandate from the Council representing the member states, which came with the core principles for non-revalorization, and at the level of the Commission in DGRTD, we try to provide hands-on guidance on intellectual assets, standardization, industry, academia, and citizen engagement.
Florentina, if I may, apologies to interrupt. It seems that when you project your slides, there is a gray box on the right side of the screen. So I wonder if you have any window on your computer that is having an impact on the slides that are being showcased. Now it's much shorter, still a small rectangle.
I think the gray box is the one from
Zoom.
the webinar. I was seeing
webinar.
actually the participants.
Okay, it was
so
that.
I minimized it, but I cannot minimize it more than this.
I think this is already much better. Thank you. And you can continue, but I think it was important to take care of this.
Thank you for letting me know. The slides will anyhow be presented to the participants and circulated by you afterwards. I went briefly through them. So now I think we can have a quick overview of the code of practice and let you know that this is revolving around the idea of the main players, so that there are targeted recommendations for each of the main categories of players. The first cluster of recommendations refers to higher education institutions and research and innovation organizations. The second cluster refers to the project partners throughout the life cycle of a research and innovation project. And the third one to policy and other stakeholders in the process. All these recommendations were built on the lessons learned and success factors from Horizon 2020 projects, and they are meant to be inclusive, which means that they are agnostic of the sector and refer to a wide range of technology readiness levels. They take into account the fact that there may be different awareness and different needs in terms of standardization activities. So I need to stress that the code of practice is a voluntary instrument that you can tailor in your own practice. And you will see in the code of practice itself that I recommend to consider in your activities that standardization is considered as a tool and not as an objective. And the approach in the code is quite balanced in this perspective. The code also recommends that technology transfer offices have prominent role in linking standardization activities with R&I actors and the other actors from the ecosystem. And of course, there may be different platforms from which you get information, but to which you can also contribute throughout these activities. So going very quickly through the 3 clusters of recommendations, the first one revolving around the academia, the higher education institutions, and the research and innovation organizations. There are 5 main types of recommendations. The first one is to develop a standardization policy, which could be standalone by itself or part of a wider intellectual property or research valorization policy. The second recommendation would be to consider standardization activity in the career development plans as an incentive to participate to such activities. And of course, in order to do that, another recommendation is to provide education and training on standardization and raise awareness on what it is and how you can contribute. In this respect, another recommendation considers that technology transfer offices should be fit for standardization in order to fulfill their supportive role for all actors in these institutions. And last but not least, it may be useful to develop an indicator and evaluation system in order to have some sort of monitoring of how a standardization is considered at organization level. The second cluster of recommendations revolves around the, let's say, a life cycle of a research and innovation project and considers that there may be different partners with different needs and different levels of engagement with standardization activities. That is why we have recommendations which start from the analysis of the landscape and the needs in order to create a common understanding and a common strategic position of the various partners in a project. And to make sure that there are also experts in the field of standardization. For example, national standardization bodies are part of some of the Horizon projects and can provide expertise, knowledge in terms of information on standardization, but also in guiding on the procedures available. And another recommendations consider having a wider stakeholder engagement with potential users to make sure that, let's say, the standard setting would be fit for practical application. Also, of course, with industry, with standard development organizations, and so on. And considering the full ecosystem of the project results, the project partners, and the role of standardization, it is, of course, important to have realistic outputs, outcomes, and impacts, which could be reported in both a qualitative and a quantitative manner. A last recommendation when it comes to incorporating standardization strategies in specific projects, it is to also consider the lifetime after the end of the project in order to ensure sustainability of standardization activities which took place during this project. So for that, you may consider how to make them visible and accessible on platforms or through incorporation in actual standards and so on. And the last cluster of recommendations refers to the policy support and the involvement of other stakeholders, which means that also member states have a role in promoting the role of standardization in knowledge valorization, also by analyzing and examining the standardization needs of startups and SMEs. And here, of course, the process is two-way. In order for the member states to be able to make this analysis, you as project beneficiaries or in other way involved in the research and innovation activities could provide feedback for proper mapping. Also, the standards development organization could make more visible their service portfolio and try to align it with R&D activities in order to make sure that there is a proper understanding of the concepts, of the procedures, and a good environment for incorporating the expertise coming from research and innovation activities. Last but not least, the idea of national support in relation to standardization, for example, through creation of help desks or repositories, accessibility of information, and awareness raising and training activities. Returning to the introduction that was made to this webinar, standards are sometimes overlooked because they most of the time refer to technical specifications to specific fields, but also because there is not enough awareness of how they can be developed and how they can be used and when they need to be used. And you'll see in the code of practice that there are references to having a gap analysis, to advantages or disadvantages of considering standardization on various projects and so on. And with that, I end the part dealing with the recommendations and only keep you for just 2 more slides, I think. One of them refers to the useful materials, and here we will have the link when the presentation is circulated to the code of practice itself and various policy guidance websites which may help you in this. I also recommend to search on the knowledge valorization platform for best practices. And if you are not registered to the knowledge valorization newsletter, to subscribe, because we just issued a new edition at the beginning of this week, which is dedicated to standardization and best practices, and also refers to a standardization survey, but it's still ongoing, and I will refer to it immediately, and to the review of the actual EU standardization regulation, which is run by another DG, but where there will also be various types of consultations to which you are also invited to participate. And I think for those who want to find out more about standards and how they can be used in practice, to go through various training materials, either video or documentation in written form, a good repository for such resources would be the Horizon Standardization Booster, and I invite you to go through it. As I was mentioning, there is still ongoing a survey on the European standardization landscape in order to gather input from all of you on the needs to boost innovation and European competitiveness. And you have 2 more days to participate in it. I strongly encourage you to take the survey and let us know your views on this. And with this, I end my presentation today, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Florentina, for this policy and overview on the importance on standards, and also to highlight the survey which is open to you for the next 2 days. You can find on the chat the links to access the survey that Florentina was talking about, and then on the second link you can access this code of standardization that Florentina provided an overview about. It's available on the European Commission website, and it's available, very important, in several languages, so there is no language barrier here. If you want to share with your connections who are less familiar with English, so that you can find the material in your own mother tongue, which is always makes things easy, right? And with this, we start with Florentina to have an overview. What are the standards? Why they're important? But now let's start going more into details. And for that, we'll start with René, who is our expert, who I mentioned, who has a PhD exactly on this topic. What is the value of standards in research outputs? And let's hear from René. Already, are you set, René?
Yes, I'm set. Thanks a lot,
Go
Rita.
ahead.
And I'm looking forward because just mentioned by Florentina, the code of practice on standardization, I was also highly involved in this one, and also contribute with my research on within my PhD on this code of practice. So I'm sharing the slides. You can see already my presentation today is an standardization tool for research innovation and expand key exploitative results exploitation across industries. Just like to raise where I come from, a bit background information. I was working at Dean for more than 12 years. 1.5 year ago, I'm changed to a Association of German Cities and pushing forward the topic of digitalization there and smart cities. But in the meantime, I'm also being a freelancer on the topic of standardization, and they have involved in a Bridge 2 project. I've coordinated this project, which had the goal to bridge the gap between standardization, research, innovation, to bring the both communities more closer, to support awareness and understanding of what standardization actually means and why is it important also for other standardization bodies, also for widening within widening countries, for example, Romania, ASRO, and Bulgaria, BDS, to participate in research activities. You find more information on this project at standardsplusinnovation.eu. At the same time, I can also refer to my PhD thesis. Rita just mentioned this. I have done my PhD at the Tecno University of Navarra in Spain almost 2 years ago, and I've had a comprehensive analysis of my projects where I've been involved through my stage of 12 years being at Dean in research projects. And I have several research papers developed which give more insight on how to best use standardization in research projects. So the question is, why standards matter in the context of research and European funded projects and initiatives? Just like to mention here, we have several challenges in research projects. One of these are for sure the collaboration within the project, the stakeholder engagement, but also last but not least, the dissemination exploitation of the results you are gaining in the project to the different target groups. So there's like kind of the lack coming from the research practice, even if the European Commission has pushed forward with the framework programs a bit more on higher tier L level to bring the research result faster to the market. But it's still a difference between the research activities and implementation in practice afterwards. So this gap was recognized by the European Commission, and that's the reason why standardization is a tool for supporting the innovation exploitation, as you could see in the previous slides of Florentina. Just like to mention a few benefits of standards and standardization. Standards are part of the state of the art. A lot of people, even when I was starting in standardization more than 15 years ago, I was not aware that standards are okay. This is kind of source which you can use to next to literature. What is the main status in a certain topic? Then it's good to know that standards support the transfer of project results into practice and that they allow the interaction with a variety of stakeholders through the different processes, which have been already mentioned, but also I guess will be also mentioned by a former colleague of mine later on from Sensenelec. Just like to see the difference. A lot of people say like, oh, what standardization, what does it actually means? No, in research, it's important to refer that standards actually means that there are existing standardization deliverables, so standards that need to be considered for the implementation within the research project activities. But standardization means actually to take up existing standards maybe, or to develop a process of using the material you gained or the research project results to provide the new standards or the content for new standards, or to provide input to existing ones. So within my PhD, I have then developed a 5-step approach called IDEP methodology, which is like basically the first letter of each of the steps. So it's like which has been also acknowledged by the different projects I have been involved. So first of all, of course, it's very important to actually check how the status quo in standardization in the project itself. So what is the standardization knowledge? Are there maybe some people or colleagues in the project already participating in standardization? What kind of activities are of relevance for the project, and so on. Then to identify the end user needs or standardization potential. That means that maybe also from the starting of the project in a certain stage of the project, there might be different needs of the end users, so the practitioners of the project. and these need to be compared actually with the project results, and then and also with the standards already available. So you can then check if there's any gap. Are there already all the existing standards available which I need for my topic, or are there any potentials that can be feed by my project results? Then there is a definition of a project standardization strategy as the next one. So you need to actually check, okay, which kind of results I really can push forward to standardization, because usually in my experience, you have like 10 to 15 different different results that could be suitable to standardization. So you can really check which of them you have to you follow with. Then there are different activities to implement the standardization activities. There are different activities like a sandbox agreement on European level, where you can easily develop a standard out of a research project, but also you can directly participate in so kind of standardization committees on European level or national level as well to feed your results into. And then the promotion and exploitation of standardization activities is one of the major items as well, because most of the standardization bodies are associations, non-profit associations even, and they develop the standards, but it's a concern of the participants in the standardization activities also to actually promote these activities and to make them used, because in the end, it's, as said before, it's a state of the art, it's a kind of source, and to follow these has benefits which are mentioned in the standard as well. I give a few short examples actually on the projects which I have been involved previously. So I have like 2 projects which I would highlight here. The first one is a Smarter Together project, and there it was from 2016 to 2021 a project on smart cities, where we had different activities that could lead to a standard. One of the activities was like a summary of more than 100 different approaches for smart cities in different communities. And then we said, okay, actually, all of these are different described, and actually how to have a comparison. Actually, if I would be a major of a city, or like a leadership in a city, how I can actually decide between the different good smart city solutions which I have in my cities. So all of them are different described. So we said, okay, let's develop a Wikipedia on the topic, and then we should all do it in the same way, mentioning the things. And then out of this, we have developed these standards, this workshop agreement on description and assessment of good practice for smart city solution. Another topic was on sustainable energy retrofit process management in existing buildings, which actually had been an output of one of our research partners from Fraunhofer, a big research entity in Germany. And they have like provided the input, which has been implemented in different districts of the Smarter Together project cities. So they've been the cities of Munich, Lyon, and Vienna, so they have directly implemented these. So you could really see that out of these standards, the awareness of the results have been much more enhanced and also be used. Another item which is maybe was a bit differently interesting in this regard is on resilience, on the city resilience topic from the SMR project, the Smart Mature Resilience project, which was from 2015 to 2018. And in 2015, we all remember have been the big migration phase in Europe. And then we had like this the difficulty, okay, how we actually build resilience in cities. So we had 5 different tools which we have developed. All of these have been included in the European Resilience Management Guideline. And then we have to check, okay, actually, which of the documents actually we should push forward, or which of the tools we should push forward into standardization. And then for us, it was quite fast clear that we should use the operational guidance, so the resilience management guideline, to provide the general overview of how to build resilience as a city in Europe. And also they have been one of the tools of this guidance is a maturity model. So like a model with 5 different maturity levels in order to see how a city can become more resilient. And another tool was information turtle to provide an overview of resilience activities in a city that it can be easily adapted by each city in Europe and beyond Europe. And to see that these tools have been integrated in this project and then have been advanced to the standardization level has also led to different influencing other ISO standards, for example, so international standards that have been incorporating different items of these 3 sandbox agreements. And also on European level, there's still an ongoing revision of on how to actually reuse these results of this project and these 3 standards to make an European standard on this topic. So it's quite a good example that these coming from a research result to bring it into standardization quite fastly as well, because I can say that some of these tools and sandbox agreements that have been developed here have been developed within 6 months of duration. So you can easily also develop within 6 months a standard if you have the resource and if, of course, the tool is already available and ready. Last but not least, I would like to thank you for your attention. It's already my last slide. If you have any questions related to standardization research innovation projects, just contact me. Here's my LinkedIn account, scan it. And thanks for the invitation from Rita and the Trust IT team and the widerAdvance facility project. Have a nice day, because I have to leave soon for my kids.
You're welcome, Renee. Thank you
So if
for
you have any
accepting the
questions, please
invitation.
raise them directly. It's possible.
Yeah, in fact, just a reminder, don't forget, you can pose your questions to our speakers, either writing on the Q&A or raising your hand. If in specific from Renee, if you have some questions you have to pose, because some kids are waiting for him, important kids for Renee. And with that, so I think it's about time after this introductory but important talk to listen from Paula with the first example she prepared to showcase to us. So I know beforehand that Paula has an example more European one and another example which goes beyond Europe. I suppose Paula will start with European one, correct, Paula?
Yes, I'm sharing. Yes, just a moment.
Almost there. You are sharing your screen, but maybe
Sorry.
not the presentation.
So can you? Yes, can you see that?
Yes,
Yes.
not perfect. All good.
Just perfect. Okay. So just I've been just a short presentation. I will present 2 examples, which I have advised at the service as HS Booster Expert. One is I've made some keywords on hydrogen, metal, and embrittlement, which is the phenomenon of corrosion. And another one is on Africa. Just a brief presentation of myself. I'm an architect. Basically, my expertise is that of an architect, a licensed architect. But I've been a researcher also in Japan in science and technology for many years. I'm specialized in lobbying and advocacy at the School of Law in Rome. I got a recent PhD, which recap from my previous experience. It is very, very important just to remind how I ended up also with the standards. I was initially in the selection. I passed a selection for the UNI, the Italian standards organization. They wanted me like a junior lobbyist. At the time, I was not even thinking what it was about. And in Japan, in my career as a researcher, I also was working for an institution who was producing technical, normative, and standards for the diet, which was for the parliament. So which responded directly to the diet, which was the parliament. Let's go to these projects. What was interesting, and I heard also both from Florentina, this was the last project I have advised in 2025, but I had at least 3 projects on hydrogen. This project was actually focusing on the embrittlement, on studying the behavior of and resistance of metals, and the way hydrogen could, across the value chain, the hydrogen could be used and become a fuel alternative to fossil fuels, which, soon after the war in Ukraine, we have had this necessity in Europe. It was interesting because the initial request, and this goes also to what Sebastian highlighted, standardization is a process, and it's important to understand all across, not only what the standard organization does, but you need also to create and build a capacity by the people, by the partnership, with joining. First, it was a process where the initial requests were like, how can I, they mentioned some words in the application form as standards, but they had no clear idea how to reach out and build capacity on identifying which could be the standards. Let's think in 2023, there were a lot of discussions also on standards, on new pipe, how the existing pipeline of gas were to be used, and this problem of embrittlement. So my support was, I have visualized in this case, was a first, and this is what goes to what Florentina mentioned, and also Sebastian. Standards are also essential for effective communication and dissemination. The more you are clear about the use of technical standards and the effect on society as well, and the effect on the market, of the European market, for improving, increasing the number of innovations and technology that you can deliver and exchange worldwide. So first was to give an overview and an orientation on the legal framework and cooperation, exactly what Florentina mentioned to us. Some of my projects started in 2022, 23, so at the time the Code of Conduct was still to be probably published, but as soon as it was published, so my advice was on that. So also give an overview on the evolved scenario behind the hydrogen, and I'll show you what are the aspects. And the other part, to identify area of standards that could be relevant. And in the case of this project, it was just around the technical standards related to hydrogen, that, as you know, there is one big standard organization at EU level that encompasses a lot of aspects, which is also a big advantage. And another aspect was also related to some digital, let's say, digital platform that was used in order to manage all the data. So this is a visualization because I'm a kind of engineer architect. So I introduced something related at the main documents of the European Commission, how the standard organization are interacting with the European Commission and how the process is being built, which I must tell, compared to 30 years ago when I was hired as a junior, they wanted me as junior, it was not like that. This is an advantage. So this I try to, and each time I gave some also recommendation, which I have indicated only in this slide, which were important for communication and dissemination. Another key point was, please follow up what's going on at EU level in an evolved scenario, which were different aspects, which are still to be sort of defined. One was the technologies, where also, which is the last point, the uncertainty of the technology, but also something related, additionality, which is a very complex concept, but basically it's related to the fact if you use green energy and then you subtracting, the energy for other uses. Other was the problem of embrittlement, which was the core of this project, because they were studying new metals that could be resistant, in a way, overcome. But the overview was take into consideration the EU evolving scenario and what's been discussed between, what was green hydrogen, whether or not, nuclear energy was. So I gave all this information, I think, which was very useful for them to keep posted. And also let's say, for my mentees, I also provided the most updated documents produced by the European Research Service, which are very, very clear. And it's normative, not only the code of conduct, but you can see all these documents, commission, and also, for example, the work program, the priorities on standards, yearly standards from the European Commission. As for the other part of the standards, then we started to discuss, and because they wanted to know which were the relevant standard organization to refer to. And another added value was to refer always to the HR Booster Academy, which I have to thank Ivana because the work was marvelous. And I suggested some of the publications. I also referred to the Smiley game, and I must say that they were very useful for applicants because as I mentioned, it's a process and it should be accessed progressively. So on the other side, I also identified referring to the smart cities and communities, so the biggest organization of the biggest group related to standards in that field, which was also a point of reference. Of course, I made some recommendation also using the document that Florentina mentioned from the European Commission, like build knowledge insights, because partner might have a very, very different knowledge on standards. And this is why I referred also to the Booster Academy, a standard age Booster Academy of the university. So that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paolo, with this first example. Just a quick note before we go for the next speaker. In fact, the standardization is an important topic. There is huge potential here to increase innovation on the research outputs. And just to highlight, so the European Union, and Florentina may confirm, so the European Union wants not only to have people to consider standards as their as a channel for increased innovation impact of their results. So this is more or less for the future use and adopters, but also there is another priority line of action the European Union is focusing on, which is also to have more European experts on standardization, so like Paula, René, and Ivana, to be involved on standardization development bodies in order to have Europeans also to bring their expertise and also their values when shaping the standardization. There are examples of projects the European Union is funding only focusing on bringing these experts to be even more active, which is the case of Stand ICT, HS Booster. There was one C blocks focus on blockchain. So this is really a very important topic because European Union sees there is huge potential here that we cannot let it pass in front of our eyes. So, Paulo, thank you for your first example. The second example will come later on. But now we are giving the floor to Sebastian from Senelec, who will talk about a little bit about ESO priorities within the Senelec standards, but also to let you know how Europeans can actually have a voice and be involved in shaping these standards, right, Sebastian?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot.
And one important note, Sebastian also, like René, has to leave right after his presentation. So if you have any question, to not miss Sebastian, write down on the Q&A, raise your hand, because if you want to hear from him, it has to be right after his presentation. Okay, Sebastian, now I think Everyone
you
is
for the
ready to listen to
introduction.
you.
And of course, you're also welcome to send me an email if you have any points you would like to discuss further. It's on the screen. And I think the slides are going to be shared as well.
Yes, they will. They
Um,
will.
yeah. Right. So the title that my presentation is about, from ESO priorities to Senate standards, it's really about like how anyone, stakeholders can influence European standardization. To start with this, standards are always market driven. So like industry researchers, people who are in the market write the standards. So it's not like that we as SEN and Senelec or also ETSI as the third European standardization body come up with a standard and we write it. It's actually the market stakeholders. It's you and me, everyone in the European Union. But the trigger for what standards are being developed can come from different levels. And here's a graph that actually depicts this quite nicely. It could come from EU policy priorities and standardization requests. Like here, it's the top. It could also be the bottom, the top. But it can also come from real like market stakeholder needs. So like bottom up, grassroots, if you want to call it like this. Um, and I think this graph is quite nice. It's from a research paper. It's also like cited there if you want to look at it. Like on the top, we have laws, like national laws. We have EU regulations and directives. We have norms, which is then self-government of the economy. So like SEN and Senelec as private organizations, but also national standardization bodies, which depending on the country are mainly also private organizations. And then at the bottom here, we have consortial standards, like different companies together developing a standard, but also like individual company standards. Like you might have a procedure in your company and you could call that a standard within your company. Um, so it goes all the way from top to bottom, or left to right, or however you want to put this graph. But that being said, if there is a law, this law can come with the request for standardization. And this request is put there with a standardization request. It's abbreviated here as SREC, which then comes to us with the need for specific standards. And we then discuss with like the companies, and it goes back to like the companies at the bottom of this graph. But mainly, and for most standards, like we have 25,000 standards in our portfolio, and for like 20,000, it's actually from the bottom up. Like companies, researchers come via the national standardization bodies up to us with proposals on what standardization should be doing. And then we work together, and the next slides are about this. The most emerging topics, however, are actually from EU policy priorities. And here just some mention, like the Green Deal, digital transition, more recently competitiveness. That's something that the European Commission works on and then comes to us with these standardization requests. And we try to mobilize industry across the European Union with our members to engage in these standardization activities. So there's different ways of how standardization is triggered. So let's look quickly at how this works. So we have priorities either coming from the market or commission. Yeah, let's stay with those two in this case. We have these priorities which are translated in technical committee work programs, so TCs in short. Within these TCs, we have experts who draft standards, always via consensus. So they all have to agree on one document, which is a very procedural aspect and takes a lot of negotiation and bargaining back and forth so that all European industry actually agrees on one document. We have national delegations, so every country, every national standards body get to vote, and there has to be a positive vote, so this standard is actually adopted in all European countries, not just in those that voted, but in all of them. And then that's what we say adoption. So a standard is eventually adopted as an EN, like an international level, you have ISO, you have IEC, and we have an EN in Europe. So how can you engage in this? So as mentioned, the standard can come from the policy level, in this case, the European Union with the standardization request. So if you want to have an influence, an impact on this, a means of getting engaged, you could contribute to a public policy consultation, so like give feedback to the European Commission when policy is actually in proposal stage, or to MEPs in the parliament when we're really talking about the legal aspects. You could go there and say like, hey, this relates to standardization, and actually we have to look at these and these things. That's one major step. Another one is you are maybe based in one or several European countries and you have national standardization bodies there. National standardization bodies are the ones who vote on standards. So they're involved in the governance. You can get active in a national standardization body via a national research project, but also like as your organization or even as an individual. And depending on the NSP, this is for free or comes with costs, but it depends on the country. And of course, these are independent organizations, but you can get involved via a national standardization body as well. And personally, I think this is the most effective way, but there's different ways of doing this. Another one would be via a technical committee. We, as SEN and CENELEC, have technical committees, but also all of the national standardization bodies have technical committees where you really get to draft the standards. You can join them at SEN and CENELEC via a European project, so like Horizon Europe, for instance. If you have a project, you can join a technical committee, but you can also join a technical committee at member state level. So let's take Cyprus with the presidency now. You can join a technical committee in Cyprus, which then gives input to the technical committee at European level or at international level. I think Ivana is going to talk about this a bit as well later. Something that is also like coming more and more and is quite attractive, and I think with HS Booster, as mentioned earlier, this is also often recommended, is a project liaison. So a research project, but also European Association, for instance, could start a liaison with a TC. And we're going to talk a bit about what this entails on the next slide. So there's ways of getting directly involved. More practically, what can you do? You can propose a new work item, for instance, or the revision of a new work item. So when a standard is adopted, you can say, hey, here's a document, but actually maybe we should revise it. We should look at it a bit differently. And you're free to propose changes. It's always very welcome, either to a national standards body or also to us. Like we're all working very closely together on this. Of course, also to ISO and IC in that regard. And for this, often gap analysis are something that is being done by research projects. So like to see, hey, which standards are there available, and actually where are gaps where we might need something additional or complementary. The last point, next to others, but that I really want to highlight here, are SEN and CENELEC workshop agreements. SEN and CENELEC workshop agreements, or CWAs, are pre-normative documents, which means that they are not a full standard. They're not a TR or TS. They're specifications of standards, but they're not a full standard. They're a pre-normative document. You can write them with a research project, with other organizations, via SEN and CENELEC, and the document that you would create together there would then be published by all national standards bodies across Europe. So this is really good for Horizon Europe projects, and I think also like often recommended by HS Booster, because it's really good exploitation of project results. All right, so what do we have? A project can align with TC work via providing use cases, data validation, etc. A research project can trigger new standards or revision of standards. And a research project can also like use these workshop agreements as really simple deliverables without a lot of procedural aspects. Have a look at it. It's really a quick way into standardization. That's the three main things. I think we had some case studies already. I've put one here on the slides as well. It came from EU policies, or like there was this need for like increasing energy efficiency in building and digitalization at the same time, with the need for like certain technologies. So they engaged with two TCs in this case. They assessed whether they want to go for this workshop agreement or they want to contribute to existing work in a TC. And eventually they submitted use cases which were feeding into a new working group in a TC and a new standard, which was quite successful and doesn't always happen. So there's no guaranteed success story in every project. But trying is what matters. And here they were really successful and they actually were recognized with an award within the project period, which was really an achievement. But yeah, I think he'll get another example later. So long story short, influence is a strategic choice. Standardization shapes future market rules. So if you set standards today, the market will be influenced by this. And if you participate early, you actually prevent that you're going to depend on standards that were written by other stakeholders. So it is important to be there. If you're not, how is this saying? If you're not sitting at the table, then maybe you're the menu. So it's better to be engaged. But then, yeah, also like visibility in technical committees builds long-term position. So it's not just about engaging during the project phase, it's also about having an impact after the project. And doing this with standardization actually leads to this because the technical committee will take on work that was done in a project. So right, summarizing, the EU on the one side or policy on the one side, public policy, but also the market, they define the direction of standardization. And for both, stakeholders shape the content. In the EU with public consultations, for markets via what is the market doing, where are we going? Companies or research, universities, etc. Then we have CEN and CENELEC, also ETSI as a European standards organization. We translate them into standards, private organizations. But also here, stakeholders shape the content. We rely on stakeholder involvement. And then we have technical committees, which are actually the ones writing the standards. And also here, we need everyone, we need you on board to actually write these standards because it's a collaborative, co-creational effort. So yeah, we're trying and we're doing all of this together to eventually strengthen industrial ecosystems. And that being said, 3 links to remember. As mentioned earlier, Standards Plus Innovation, I think it's in the chat, great website. It shows like first points of contact, also related to national standards bodies. Second website, HS Booster, also already mentioned. Great for consultancy to get in touch with standards, like to know like your project matching, where do you have to go? And then if you have any other questions, research at sensenelec.eu. And if you have any questions, send them via the email, check these websites and listen to Ivana because she has also really good things to say after me now. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sebastian, for your presentation. In fact, from Sebastian intervention, you can see that these standardization bodies are not these groups of VIP people, very exclusive, that these are equal to engage with. No, there is a possibility to engage, and with a certain way, and Sebastian told us how that can be done. It's the community should in fact engage with standards, and this is very important when if you are from a project or you are developing a research result, which maybe at the moment there is no specific standard that can impact to it, but it is so unique. It's important that you are involved in these standardization groups because someone might write a standard not taking into account some latest research results that should actually give also its voice to the standard that's being written. And as Sebastian said, it's going to have an impact in the long term because as soon as a standard is defined, you have to comply to the standard. In many cases, we have in some situations also policymakers evolved on that. So it's important early engagement with STOs on the topics that are relevant to you. And with this, I don't see any further questions, Sebastian. So thank you for your time. Go ahead with your other meeting or event you have to be on.
Yes, sorry, it was a bit unplanned. But all right, have a nice afternoon.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. And with this, I see there is a question from Alicia, but for the benefit of time, I see this question from Alicia is for Paula. So I would give the floor now to Ivana, and then when Paula does her second presentation after Ivana, we'll dedicate some time to questions and answers. So with this, Ivana, hi, it's your turn to to share with us your expertise in how the countries can be evolved on their seals and adopt standards. Isn't that right?
Yes. Thank you
Go
so
ahead.
much. So I'm Ivana Mijatovic. I'm coming from University of Belgrade, Faculty of Organizational Science, and thank you for joining the webinar today. So my task today is to make European and international standardization landscape closer to you. As we already heard, standardization is an important tool for knowledge polarization, and researchers and research organizations might gain great benefits by using standards to prevent reinventing the wheel and by participating in standard development. One can easily imagine how different today's world would be without industry agreements, joint solution, and standardization. For example, competing providers of mobile communication services had to agree on common technical solution in order to access larger market. Thanks to standards and standardization, those agreements help expand market and new technologies, and the solution becomes omnipresent in our daily life. For many researchers, standardization feels like it exists on another planet from science. I think that you have that feeling after we provide you so much information in one day. But why is that? And how can it be changed? First of all, let's recall once more what is standard. A standard is a widely agreed way of doing something. So doing something may be replaced by designing a product, building a process, implementing procedure, or delivering the service. Generally, standardization is activity of standards development. So the core meaning of standards is related to common agreement. It's important to understand that standardization is human, mostly human, activity and collective activity. Achieving common agreement takes time, and there is no guarantee that the process will always be successful. However, before common agreements, there is one logical step: common understanding. Researchers are trained in scientific communities and scientific communication. They are skilled in writing research papers, and their main audience is other researchers. Their work is expected to be strongly grounded in existing literature and to contribute to new scientific knowledge. In contrast, most experts participating in technical committees come from industry. Their task is to communicate solutions or ways of doing things that can be applied across many different industrial settings. Their primary audience is industry professionals, not academics. That is why for many researchers, standardization feels like it exists on another planet from science. So researchers can benefit from participation and from participating in standardization processes and improve their knowledge valorization skills. So, one common understanding among researchers, industry, and other stakeholder representatives is achieved. A common agreement is much more certain to be reached. The next question we will define today is where are standards developed? Florentina says something about that, and Sebastian. So I will recap if you allow me. So businesses, global market, and various other actors influence development of increasing number of standards. Generally, standards can be developed in many different settings. For example, within national, regional, and international organization for standardization, within professional and industrial association, business association, consortia, or fora. The organizations that develop these standards cooperate and create dynamic and complex networks. So, formal standardization organization, also known as voluntary consensus-based organization, develops standards through a consensus process. This means that participation is open and accessible to all interested parties. And the main goal, is to balance different interests through mutual agreement. In this presentation, the focus will be on formal standardization. The main task of this organization is to provide a neutral platform and specific framework, including rules, processes, and project management for actors and experts to develop standards and other deliverables. So, formal organization for standardization operate at international, regional, and national levels. At the international level, key standard development organizations include International Telecommunication Union, which is a United Nations specialized agency for information and communication technologies. The International Electrotechnical Commission, IEC, which is a global non-profit organization which coordinating work in electrical and electronic sectors. Finally, the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, is an independent, non-governmental organization, practically system of 170 national standards bodies as a member, covering almost all areas of technology and manufacturing. In Europe, standards play an important role in marketing integration, safety, sustainability, innovation, and fair competition. European standards strengthen the EU single market and enhance global competitiveness. The European standardization system is represented by three main organizations. SAN, which brings together national standards body from 34 countries, SENELEC, which focus on electrotechnical standardization, and ENTSE, which develops standards for telecommunication. Please have in mind that once the European standard is agreed upon SAN and SENELEC, it becomes a national standard in all 34 member countries. Finally, although many organizations within a country may participate in standardization, only one body represents national interest at the European and international levels. That organization is called National Standardization Body. So, the next question is related to how to get involved in standardization development process. But first, let's answer the question. Sebastian told you already, who develops standards? Standards are developed by experts who represent their organization within standard development organization. These standards are created by bringing together all interested parties, such as manufacturers, consumers, regulators, researchers, within a specific area, discipline, or sector. The way stakeholders participate depends on organization. Representatives participate directly in ETSI and ITU activities. However, for SAN, SENELEC, ISO, and IEC, participation takes place through national standardization bodies and their national technical committees. This means that European standards in SAN and SENELEC and international standards in ISO and IEC are developed by independent technical experts nominated by their respective national standards body. These national standards bodies are responsible for coordinating the work of national mirror committees, ensuring that standards are developed with the full participation of national experts. Members of national mirror committees participate in voting and commenting processes during the development phase of standards and other deliverables. They provide a vital input and feedback to ensure that standards reflect national interest and priorities. Access to these committees is based on conditions set by every national standards body, which may include membership fees and other criteria. So, why is this important for research community in Europe? CENELEC and National Standards Body actively support the research and innovation community. Through initiatives such as the CENELEC Innovation Action Plan, as well as the Bridget projects, many national standardization bodies in Europe receive support and now offer specialized services for researchers and research organizations. These include free access or quite high discount to standards, specific information on relevant standardization activities, and training and other support activities. Therefore, if you are representing a research organization, knowledge transfer office, research management, there is one immediate and practical step you can take. Contact your national standards body and explore the opportunities for collaborations. But on the other side, the next question is, why get involved in standardization? What is rational to take part in such a complex system of organization, technical committees, subcommittees, working groups? In general, researchers are warmly welcome into standardization processes. However, participating in standard development often requires significant time, resources, and commitment. Furthermore, not all national standards bodies possess the same level of skill, experience, or resources to support researchers in their country. Nevertheless, the doors are open, and for some researchers in widening countries, this represents the unique opportunity to help to improve system and grow alongside their national standards body. Despite these challenges, many researchers find participation in standardization to be highly rewarding. However, we can say that it broadened their perspectives and helped them develop knowledge valorization skills and networks and foster communication, common understanding. Basically, the key takeaways for researchers today are, so for researchers, standardization offers two vital advantages. Being aware and using existing standards ensures research work is compatible and prevents reinventing the wheel. Active participation in standard development and contributing to improvement of current standard or development new ones bridge the gap between research and the market. It is a powerful way to enhance knowledge valorization skills and build professional networks. So, the first steps to get involved are today. First, map the standardization landscape. As you could see in Paola's example, first identify SDOs, technical committees, subcommittees, working group relevant to your field. Review published standard and those currently under development. Seriously consider participation in standard development organization, whether through direct participation or via national standards bodies. The third step is to initiate contact. Reach out to your national standards body to learn about available support or to learn more about specific services for academic and research experts. Thank you so much for your attention, So, Rita,
Thanks,
the floor
Ivana.
is yours.
Thank you very much for this overview. And I'll give the floor now to Paula. Call Paula once again back to the front line, back on stage to talk about
Yes,
the
sorry,
second
I was talking by
example.
myself. Yes.
That's okay.
Okay.
Whenever you want.
Yes,
Let's try to speed up a little
I'm
bit,
trying now.
you and
Okay.
myself, because we are a little bit over the time.
Yes.
But
Now I
we'll be
will
able
be
to do
very,
it.
very quick compared to
Mhm.
the
To
other.
the other. Mhm.
It is very important to remind again, this was another project. It was about Africa, and it was about bringing some kind of experiment, some kind of a technology developed by European partners. It was a Spanish company, and it was much related to the use of and production of energy through the waste from agriculture, the reuse of water from these plants. It was like a biogas, and it was there were several areas where it was important, the standard. Additionally, the project wanted to also get some help about the standards in procurement at the international level, because they had a problem that some procurement should be done by partners in country where the pilot should be realized, like in Morocco, Ghana, and as you can see, there might have been problems. So I gave also some advice, because I've been also public official for many years, and I gave advice on procurement. In the end, they decided to ask for the European Commission to shift the money, the budget for their procurement. So basically, the activity was to identify area of standards, because there were several area of standards, and also to again to the additional support was also to identify basically to have an overview how the process of standardization was working and which were the technical committees, because as an expert you can provide indication, but sometimes this is very important. They lack knowledge on what exactly was discussed by Ivana. And sometimes also some committees, you have to go through your national authorities in order to access, the European one, or get some kind of representation and dialogue. It's a little bit, sometimes it's very confusing on the part of people who are, especially academics. It's normal, because we're talking about negotiation. And so this project was interesting because there were several areas covering the understanding, identify several area of standards. And so, for example, this was the code of conduct again. I helped them identify 3 more main areas of standards, which were related to the biomass plants and energy applications. And it was also interesting because they were exploring the way and the standards related to biochar, which at the time, it was a project I have advised with the HRS booster in 2023, I think, one of the first. And so biochar, it was also something at let's say, something like in the early stage to be followed up. So we identified also relevant bodies that were dealing with this very new aspect, which would be an advantage if standard were set up. So the use of the product from agriculture and from this biogas that could be used in agriculture, so like a circle. And also another area was the use of water from the agri-food waste and from the plants. The most important takeaway I forgot to mention, in this horizon often, standards are just mentioned in certain part of the application, but it's not clear exactly how they will be dealt with and in which way, because it's really complicated to understand the process of negotiation at the EU and international level. So my role was also to identify the specific parts of the application, how these were linked to in which way also communication could be improved. And so this was quite something of a, let's say, a job. Additionally, as I said, for biochar, there were some indications, and for each of the service I gave some specific recommendations, and then there were also final recommendations. So I think it was very useful for the applicants because it opened up, a world and a world of opportunity. The scope of this project was also to try to use to deliver European technology for the benefit of African countries, and so the better use of energy production and also water usage. So with that, I don't want to go because we are closing.
Thank you, Paula. I see.
Sorry.
I see there is a question from Alicia on the chats from a while ago. So for the benefit of time, if you could reply writing, everyone could read, and then we can proceed with
because I
closing the
replied.
webinar.
I replied and in the chat probably to Alicia. It was about yes, it was about, if you want, I can tell. It was about the hydrogen. She raised the issue that which could be which is the situation at the national level. Of course, the problem is that even within the EU, as I try to explain, concerning hydrogen, there are several critical aspects critical because they need also negotiation. And it's a kind of a negotiation which is very complicated, like to understand what is the principle of additionality behind the use of green energy, for example, hydrogen needs a lot of energy. So why should we use, in which way we should use, this kind of... Alicia, you have raised your hand.
Yes.
Sorry.
It was, sorry, it was answered the question in the chat. So the links could be provided later. Sorry, because the question was put in a different channel.
Yeah.
Congratulations for the talks.
Thanks, Alicia. Thanks, Paula.
Thank you.
And okay, we are almost done. Thank you for your patience staying longer. I promise I'm going to be very, very quick. So we had an overview. What are the standards? Why they're important? How you should engage and be involved on this. But there is also the situation where I still would like to have some help to navigate within this world. And this is why WideAir is here for you. And I'm going to tell you how you can have our support. So first of all, WideAir is focusing on widening countries, as we have been telling. Widening countries are specific countries. So in this slide, you have an overview of the flags. Basically, are countries from Eastern Europe. From Western Europe, you have Portugal, and also from the outermost regions. What are these regions? Are basically the islands that European countries have. For example, in the case of Portugal, you have Azores and Madeira. In case of France, you have islands around the world, for example, La Réunion, which is based in the Indic Ocean. So also those research teams from those locations can also apply for this service. For example, France is not a widening country, but their outermost regions like La Réunion, it's considered one and they can apply for our support. So just highlight, this is a service free of charge. You need to apply if you want to, you just need to apply to get support on standardization. We already went through the benefits of embracing standardization, higher levels of competitiveness. You more easily navigate within the standardization landscape, will increase the impact of your result in the market, and also you will expand your network within your field. So you may ask, who will deliver, who will be helping me? Will be all senior experts on status. And in fact, Paula, Renee, and Ivana, we had here today are 3 experts from the pool of experts we have within widerA that are available to give you support. And each expert that will be allocated to you will take into consideration the field you are involved and what kind of support you are looking for. As Katarzyna said at the start of this webinar, research teams and research management administrations from institutions can apply. There is another important requirement besides being from a widening country is also that the result you have, to which you like to have support on standards, that result needs to have a minimum technology readiness level, which is also known as TRL. The minimum has to be 4. You have here an image with the classifications of the TRL, but this is an important requirement. From 4 above, you can apply to have support from widerA on standardization. And also, the standardization support can be applied with different fields from health, sustainable, digitalization, smart cities, green transition, anything. So it's not just related to IT. Many people have the impression just for IT products, but no, standards can be applied in so many different fields. So don't be shy to apply because you think maybe there is the standard on that. Probably there is, okay? So just send your application and you will see that for you. If you may ask, if I apply and I get support, how much time it will require for me? Not much exactly. So as soon as you are selected, you'll have a first meeting with the expert we allocated for you. Then after this briefing meeting, the expert will focus on your needs, and then you meet again at the final of the service. You may have an intermediary meeting in the middle, but long story short, since the service start till is closed, it's expected to take 2 months. But majority of the time will be from the expert who will be at your service to support you. And all these, the service provision will be done through an online platform like the one we are using today. So it's not a face-to-face meeting, doesn't require travel, everything is done online. If you want to apply, it's very simple. You just go to widerA homepage, you click on the button on the top right called apply, and you submit your application. The deadline to apply, as Katarzyna said, the next deadline is the 30th of April, but there will be additional, let's say, cutoff dates where you can apply. The thing is, if you apply by April, then we have a pool of candidates, and from those candidates, we select a couple of them to get the service, and then on the next poll, we'll have another selection process. And with this was all about standards, but has said widerA is not only focused on standards, is focused on many other aspects that are important to increase the impact of your research results. And with this, so today was a webinar on standards, but we have more. Katarzyna already mentioned one of them, which is right in 1 week, focus on this result dissemination for different stakeholders on the 6th of March. In 1 month's time, there is another one, focus on open science, reproducibility for greater impact. And even beyond, thinking already about May, there is on the 7th of May, another webinar focused on knowledge and technology transfer. What are the differences and similarities? All these webinars are already listed on the widerA homepage. You just need to click on the link, go to the website, and feel free to register right now. But to close this and let you go, we are here to help you out. So if you could scan the QR code and fill in a very quick satisfactory survey to share your opinion, how this webinar was helpful, any other comments you may have, because we are here to prepare activities that take into account what you are looking for. And with this, I just would like to thank you, our attendees, for coming for staying longer than 4:30. And also like to thank you, the experts who are here with us, Paul, René, Ivan, who shared their time. Also to Sebastian from Sensenlike. We are happy to have one STO representative here on today's webinar. A special thank to Florentina from the European Commission. Always important to have the EC with us to share with us what are the most important priorities on this field. And also, last but not least, Katarzyna, who is coordinating the overall widerAdvance facility movement. And with this, I'll call it today. And thank you very much for your time. See you soon.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks to all.